Have you ever had a teacher tell you to play like long, short, dotted rhythms, or maybe play it backwards, or start at the end with one note and then gradually work your way backwards, kind of adding on a note at a time? Well, in this video, I'm super excited to explain kind of the neuroscience behind that so you can have a better understanding of why you should be doing those things, how you should be doing those things, and what to do to actually get the most benefit out of them. So to get started, you need a quick little rundown of how the brain actually works. Very basic rundown. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I have studied some neuroscience and learned a lot from people who specialize in kind of practicing. So this first idea comes from Alison Wilkinson, I believe is her name. Making Musicians is her brand. You can find her on all the social medias. And this is a really, really cool idea that helps in practice and in teaching of like, okay, what's actually going on in the brain? So she uses a car analogy, which I think is a pretty good analogy. I kind of like to just think about it as the parts of their brains, but the car analogy is it's a rear engine car with the trunk in the front, and we have kind of our forebrain, which is the trunk where the information is stored. We have the midbrain, which is the driver that kind of drives our decision making, and then we have the hindbrain, which is the engine that runs the actual motor movements and things like that. And again, like just thinking of it in terms of the brain, forebrain is kind of our prefrontal cortex, frontal lobes. That's where our thinking is happening. That's where our kind of thoughts and consciousness are. Midbrain is kind of amygdala, nucleus accumbens. This is where dopamine center, motivation, decision making, and emotions are the big one, live kind of in the midbrain. And then the hindbrain is the cerebellum, which controls all the automatic motor movements. So if you put your hands together in front of your face, you don't have to think about like, okay, I'm gonna like move this hand up to here, and I'm gonna place this hand here, and then I'm gonna move this other hand up to here, and then I'm gonna, okay, the one hand's here, now I'm thinking about it and like trying to get them to come together. If you try to do some of those simple motions with the forebrain where you're really thinking through it, it becomes exceptionally tedious, whereas the hindbrain is very good at this and just you can just do that. And it's also fascinating in some of the research and science that so many of the neurons are in the cerebellum. It's a relatively small part of the brain by volume, but the density of the neurons in there are incredibly high, which is why programming in our motor movement of playing our scales and things like that, it takes a little while to get it programmed in there, but once it's in there, it's automatic. You can probably play a C major scale without even thinking about it. Now, what does this have to do with playing dotted rhythms or playing it backwards or all of those exercises that your teacher tells you to do but doesn't have all the neuroscience background of why it actually works, or also is just trying to be efficient in your lesson time and not do a half an hour deep dive on neuroscience? The reason why this is so valuable is because the hindbrain, the cerebellum, needs lots of repetitions to get those motor movements into the fingers and build that automaticity of it. The way the brain learns anything and gets more efficient and faster at anything is through a process called myelination, where a neural network is fired, and then when it's getting fired, it wants to myelinate, which is basically insulating that neural network. And as that insulation gets built up, then the neural network can fire faster. So if you want to play fast, you want to be able to move your fingers through fast technical passages, this is the way to do it, is through repetition, getting it learned into the cerebellum. Now, the one problem with this and doing lots of repetition is the forebrain and the midbrain are not big fans of repetition. They don't find it to be particularly rewarding. And this is where the long, short rhythms, playing it backwards, all that stuff comes in. This is called contextual interference. Where I learned a lot of this was from Greg Goodhart, who has a YouTube channel. The Learning Coach is his brand. Also, Dr. Molly Gabrian has a great book on this called Learn Faster, Perform Better. Lots and lots of good resources on this kind of stuff. And what contextual interference is that kind of mixing things up a little bit. So if you have a run da-da-da-da-dum, where it's supposed to be even, and you do it with a long, short dotted rhythm, da-da-da-da-dum, that's changing the context a little bit and making you have to think about it. And what this is doing for us is keeping the forebrain and the midbrain happy and satisfied while we get reps in for the hindbrain. So the alternative to this is doing just reps. Da 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 dum, 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 da 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 dum. And by now you've probably stopped watching the video because your brain is bored of hearing that many reps in a row. You also kind of start to lose the comprehension of it, where it's just turning into background noise. Da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. A couple relatable ideas that you've experienced with this is when you're wearing clothes, your neurons or your nerves are still getting stimulated by the clothes that you're wearing, but your brain isn't paying attention to that stimulation. You almost can't even feel the clothes on your body unless you consciously focus on it. Another thing is if you say a word or say your name over and 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 over again, it starts to completely lose its meaning. You stop hearing the word as a meaningful word and it just turns into mush. That's the same thing that will happen when you're just doing da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. And the big problem with this is as you're doing those repetitions, it's good for the hindbrain. The hindbrain is getting those reps in, that neural network's being fired, it's gonna wanna be myelinated, so that's all great. However, the problem is the forebrain, it deals in information and thinking. So the forebrain wants to be thinking, it wants to be encountering new information. The midbrain is the feeling of satisfaction and am I actually making progress with what I'm doing? And if you're just doing that passage over and over again, especially if there's a harder passage than what I'm singing would be an even better example of this. You're doing that passage over and over again. The forebrain is getting kind of bored because it's okay, there's no new information here, I'm checking out. The midbrain's am I actually getting any value out of this? I'm not really thinking about it. I'm not really working on it. So this is kind of frustrating. I haven't actually made it sound better. I'm just doing the same thing over and over. Am I actually even getting better? And then you start getting a little frustrated or it feels a little tedious and you're I don't want to be doing this anymore. And the real trap, all of this is happening subconsciously. You're not sitting there actually actively thinking those things. All of this is happening subconsciously, but the midbrain is in control of the decision making, and the midbrain starts to go, you know what? I don't know if we've gotten any benefit out of this. I don't think this has gotten any better. The forebrain's yeah, I'm bored. And then the midbrain and the forebrain conspire and have this great idea of, let's go faster. That'll make it more engaging. Let's go a little bit faster. So you start slow and in control. Dee-da-da-da-tum, 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 and then it starts to get mushy. And that's the trap. And this is why you feel like there's a kind of speed ceiling and you can never play fast enough, because you're falling into this trap of the midbrain and the forebrain conspiring against the hindbrain, where the hindbrain needs clean, precise reps to get the correct neural networks myelinated and get the precision myelinated into the fingers. But the midbrain and forebrain get tired of that and want to push faster. And this is where contextual interference becomes so valuable. Doing the dotted rhythms, playing it backwards, etc., etc. That is so valuable because it gets clean finger movement into your fingers, but the forebrain is dealing with new information. You've interfered with the context, so the forebrain's oh, this isn't just ba-da-da-da-dum, now it's dee-da-dee-da-dee, or ba-da-ba-da-dum. And now the forebrain is more engaged. The other big, huge value with the contextual interference is you're making progress, where if you do let's say it's going to be a long, short dotted rhythm. Okay, I have to think about that. How does that go? Ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum. Oh, okay, now I got the hang of it. So the midbrain is very excited, and the dopamine centers are going off, saying oh, I accomplished something. I took something that I wasn't sure how I was going to go, and I figured it out, and I was able to play it. Awesome, we're making progress. And all this time, as the forebrain is engaged with new information and the midbrain is excited about the progress you're making, the hindbrain is getting good, clean reps in. Because the real secret of contextual interference and the real value is in the desirable difficulty. When you have that feeling of oh, I have to figure this out a little bit. This is going to be a little tricky. The forebrain is so engaged because it's thinking through it and working through it. And then when you work it out and overcome that trickiness, the midbrain's like, yes, we did something, we accomplished something. And the most valuable part is when you have that desirable difficulty, you're naturally not going to go too fast, and you're naturally going to stay in control because you have to go slow enough to figure it out. Whereas when you just do reps, midbrain's frustrated, forebrain is bored, and you go faster and get sloppier, and bad reps go into the hindbrain. Contextual interference, your forebrain's thinking about it a lot. You're having to figure it out. You're having to go slow. You're having to break it down into smaller chunks to figure it out. The midbrain is excited that you're figuring new things out, and you're getting good, slow, clean, precise reps into the hindbrain. So hopefully that makes sense. Definitely let me know in the comments if you have any questions about kind of this format. If you are a neuroscientist or have a better understanding of how the brain works, feel free to add any nuance to this idea as much as you want. I haven't heard anybody talking about this particular connection between contextual interference and how it interacts with the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So yeah, if you have any thoughts or nuance to add to that, I would love to hear that. And I want, before we leave, to give you one last idea of how to actually make this work for yourself. So first, do contextual interference. Second, beware of what Greg Goodhart calls the speed monster. The speed monster is the conspiring of the midbrain and forebrain to go faster, which gives sloppy reps to the hindbrain. And then when you're doing contextual interference, very important that you're finding desirable difficulty. Now you understand the point when your teachers say, do this dotted rhythm, play it backwards, start at one note and then add a note, play one beat at a time. All that stuff that your teachers are telling you to do, now you understand the purpose of it. Because the secret is those things don't always work on their own. You will get to a point where you're so comfortable with a long, short, dotted rhythm that you'll have the same trap and the speed monster will come up where you'll do da-da-da-da-dum. Oh, that was easy and boring and didn't feel like I was making a lot of progress. Let me try it faster. And then you'll do sloppy reps when you're going faster, and then you'll still have a speed ceiling. So you have to remember, this is the underlying purpose. The desirable difficulty is the value of this. The keeping the forebrain interacting with new information and having to think through something. Keeping the midbrain excited that you've actually solved a problem. And doing all of that slowly enough that you're still doing clean reps, and getting clean reps into the hindbrain is what matters. And the speed will come over time. The speed comes from the myelination of the neural networks. If you're always myelinating really precise, really good, natural, relaxed finger motion, then you'll be able to do that really, really fast over a period of time, once it has time to sink in and get myelinated. If you're doing a few good clean reps, and then a few sloppy reps, and a few really sloppy, intense reps, then all of those neural networks are getting myelinated by the hindbrain, and none of them are getting myelinated as well, because it's splitting up the myelination across 3 different neural networks, or even a bunch of different neural networks. So keeping that precision and control while keeping the forebrain and midbrain happy is the key. This is why we do contextual interference. If you're not finding the desirable difficulty, then you're probably still going to get got by the speed monster. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another one.